Braun Strowman possibly coming back to WWE, rumors of AEW being interested. I'm going to bring you guys my opinion on everything that's going on with Braun Strowman because this is a very interesting story. My name is Tony from Destination Pro Wrestling, and if you're new here, go ahead and click that like button, share this video with your friends on social media, and on top of that, if you guys could do me the favor of subscribing to this channel where I bring you guys daily news and rumors in pro wrestling, I'd greatly appreciate it. And if you guys want to get notified on all of the videos, make sure you guys ring the bell as well. But we got to talk about Braun Strowman, and if you guys didn't know, he does look a little bit different these days. I'm going to show you guys an image right here. Braun Strowman, he has trimmed down the beard. Yeah, that's right. Braun Strowman does not look the same. He doesn't look like how you may remember him, but it's not really a big deal. In fact, I think this change could be a good change. But why is Braun Strowman possibly returning to WWE? Why is AEW interested? Is AEW going to sign Braun Strowman? There is just so much being said about this particular topic, and we got to talk about it. So, as you guys know, in pro wrestling, lately it's been really crazy. WWE releasing top stars, WWE releasing people that were underutilized, and of course, AEW has done a fantastic job of picking up some of the pieces that were dropped by WWE. But of course, this means that AEW is going to have to shell out a lot of money. So this is where it gets kind of chaotic. If you guys didn't know, WWE released Braun Strowman not that long ago, and the reason for it was due to budget cuts. Now, when we originally talked about Braun Strowman being released on this channel, one of the main reasons for him being released is the fact that he had over $1 million contract with WWE. WWE didn't necessarily have a need for another giant on the television screen, mainly because they have Omos and a couple other big guys. But of course, with WWE getting rid of Braun Strowman, who did sell merchandise, by the way, Braun Strowman not only had high merchandise sales, Braun Strowman was considered a top guy. A lot of people were curious as to why WWE did it. Well, when WWE says budget cuts, that's a very good indication that they are looking to save money, and there's a million reasons for that. But of course, what was very interesting was the fact that there was no news about AEW possibly signing Braun Strowman. Now, there has been a lot of teases by AEW on social media. There have been a lot of teases by reporters, and a lot of people have been coming out with, these statements that say Braun Strowman could very well be on his way to AEW. But that's kind of the common trend anytime somebody from WWE is released. Now, there was also a report that stated that WWE actually has interest in bringing back Braun Strowman. However, in order for them to do so, they have to do it at a lower cost. So we don't necessarily know if Braun Strowman is going to WWE. We don't necessarily know if he's going to AEW. But as it stands right now, it seems like the only company actually interested in signing Braun Strowman is the WWE. And there's a couple of reasons why. So if you guys didn't know, when Braun Strowman was released, he was already booked for a pro wrestling match in Qatar Pro Wrestling. And this is probably the only organization outside of AEW or New Japan that can actually afford the high price tag of booking Braun Strowman. So as you may have noticed, there's not a lot of small indie wrestling companies locally who are able to shell out, 5 figures for Braun Strowman. But of course, when it comes to AEW, while there may be interest there, it is also being said that Braun Strowman is not going to be a cheap acquisition. And when you're AEW, you do have to look at your wallet. Despite the fact that AEW does have access to a lot of money, one thing that's got to be considered is the fact that AEW signed CM Punk. Braun Strowman is obviously not on the level of CM Punk. And then there's also talk about guys like Bray Wyatt going to AEW. And then, of course, Bryan Danielson, Daniel Bryan. These acquisitions for AEW are not cheap. Not to mention AEW has already signed 2.0. And then they've also signed Kiera Hogan from Impact. Again, those contracts are not as big as Braun Strowman's, but those are the type of contracts that you want to bring in because they don't cost a lot and you are going to get some great workers. Braun Strowman, without a doubt, is going to cost a lot of money, and it's being said that AEW is really looking at doing this the right way and not getting themselves in financial trouble. So I've read some reports, I've seen some things on Twitter, and people were saying for right now, it doesn't sound like Braun Strowman will be going to AEW, which is completely fine. However, there was a report that WWE was interested in bringing back Braun Strowman, especially at a cheaper price point. Now, one of the biggest things that Braun Strowman made when he was getting such a large contract from WWE was the fact that he didn't have a release clause. So there are clauses that are sometimes negotiated for WWE top stars that pretty much state that they can't be released, right? This is not common, but it does exist. And typically guys who are getting paid over $1 million, they don't really have, they pretty much have that clause. Braun Strowman was one of those guys who didn't have that negotiated, and therefore when he was released, that massive contract that he was offered was no longer available. So it's being said that WWE would like to bring in Braun Strowman. Again, different look, different feel to Braun Strowman's character. WWE has plans to utilize him in a different capacity, and it sounds like WWE very well may be bringing him back. The real question is, when will WWE do this? How will they go about it? And why? I truly believe that Braun Strowman is good for any pro wrestling company. But at the same time, too, I cannot have Braun Strowman running around a ring with the choo-choo sound effect going off through the arena. What I want to see from Braun Strowman is the same Braun Strowman that we got against Roman Reigns when he was flipping ambulances and crazy shit like that. Like, that was a good time to be a Braun Strowman fan because it was very intriguing, it was exciting, and he was very dominant. And it was very clear that WWE went back to doing what they always do, and that is by making their monsters more of like a character, more for like the PG era. Instead, they missed the boat with Braun Strowman, and it's a huge mistake that they've made. I personally do see that Braun Strowman going back to WWE would make the most sense. I think he should be on WWE. I think we need to see something completely different from him. So the fact that he does have a little bit of a different look is great. I don't know what's next. It sounds like he's going to be taking a little bit of a break before making that next move. I, for one, am very intrigued to see what happens. Obviously, he made a lot of money, so I'm not sure if he really necessarily needs the money at this point. But if Braun Strowman does find his way back into WWE, all I'm saying is don't be surprised. And don't be surprised if AEW does actually shell out the money for Braun Strowman. AEW could very well use a big guy like Braun Strowman on their roster. And yes, there are a couple of matchups that I would like to see. Despite the fact that Braun Strowman is not like this typical indie wrestler, Braun Strowman did a really good job of improving throughout time in WWE. And that's one of the reasons why I want to see him in AEW. Just simply to see what he can do different from the WWE system. WWE wants to train all of their wrestlers the same. Braun Strowman going to AEW would probably get a lot more of a fan's attention because they would get to see him do something different. And there is an upside to that. So I want to know what you guys think. Do you guys want to see Braun Strowman in WWE or AEW? I would love to hear your feedback. Let me know in the comment section down below, and I'll see you guys next time.